this. And in fighting for access to information, it should be our problem and it should be our solution collectively. Access to information promotes the right of every individual, all of us here, to seek and receive information in whatever we do. So my hope is that by the end of the day, after all these speeches and discussions here, we all go out, doors closed, we will have a better idea at least on what we need to do to always promote, and not just promote, but also safeguard access to information in whatever way we can and wherever we are.
Azole, in occasion of the celebration of universal access to information. And the speech goes, universal access to information is a fundamental human right that plays a pivotal role in empowering citizens, facilitating fair debate, and giving equal opportunities to all. It is a driving force for transparent, accountable, and effective governance, and paves the way for freedom of expression, cultural and linguistic diversity, and participation in public life. For this reason, universal access to information is a pillar of the 2030 Development Agenda for Sustainable Development. UNESCO continues to play a leading role in building inclusive knowledge societies through the promotion of freedom of expression, media development, and universal access to information.
Having a draft bill that we have already presented to the Ministers of Justice and the Attorney General and the Minister of Information, and they have openly welcomed us. And the Minister of Justice, by the way, promised that he will do his utmost to ensure that by December we will have this law before this bill before Parliament. And we would, I think this is a best practice in the sense that civil society and the government are not at loggerheads, but are working together to ensure that we have access to information. I know all of us will have our take on government and all that, and sometimes we just keep lambasting and bombarding.
Press, all other protocols respectfully observed. Let me first of all put on record my mammoth gratitude to the able Secretary General of the Gambia National Commission for UNESCO for graciously inviting the Solicitor General and Legal Secretary, Mr. Cherno Marina, to participate in this important national celebration of International Day for Universal Access to Information in the Gambia, which will take the form of a one-day conference for multi-stakeholders at this magnificent Baobab Hotel and sponsored by the UNESCO office in Dakar. Mr. Cherno Marina would have very much liked to be here in person, but unfortunately he's caught up with other important pressing affairs of state, and he has therefore asked me to represent him at this forum. And I can assure you, the Latin maxim, delegatus non potest delegare, a delegated power cannot be subdelegated, cannot apply here. And I hope I'll do justice to this solidarity statement. Honorable Mrs. Claudiana Cole, the Minister of Education, is the chairperson of the board of the Gambia National Commission for UNESCO. In acknowledgement of this important day, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, has realistically identified the 28th of September every year as International Day for Universal Access to Information, which is a sequel to the adoption of a resolution in November 2015, 38C70, which officially declared the universal observance of this day for international.
leaving no one behind. In recent times, universal access to information has been in the center of many development programs, as it assists member states in harnessing new opportunities of the information age to create equitable societies through better access to information. Thus, setting aside this day will provide an opportunity to raise awareness on the importance of the right to information and create a platform for governments, civil society, citizens, and development partners to reflect on challenges and ways to promote the advancement of access to information as a tangible tool for development and the realization of the SDGs. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, access to information is an enabler of all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and is vital.
Legal recognition or legislative framework for access to information, and then we are going to go down to Africa, and then we come down to the Gambia. Of course, we are going to look at the 1970 and then. But I know what a right is. And don't ask me what a right is, because when I see it, I know it. And I know that right to information, that's why we call it right, that you don't even have to have a legal framework, such as right to life. I don't have to have the law to say that I have a right to life, whether or not the law says that. I have a right to freedom of expression. That's natural. I'm born with it. So we do not need to have a law for freedom of information or for freedom of expression to be recognized. And in 2019, that's where we are in now. So the issue of whether or not freedom of information is a human right is no longer, or not freedom of information is a human right is no longer a debate. What is a debate now is to what extent should people access information. But whether or not it is a right is not a matter of debate now. So that's just what I want to point out. And then, in terms of its evolution, I've put some terms here. And if I may read the third bullet point, which says it's the touchstone of all the freedoms to which the United Nations is consecrated. Now, this is in a resolution that was passed by the United Nations in 1946, in the very first sitting of the UN General Assembly, where they recognized that freedom of information is the touchstone to which all other freedoms, and that's a map. We go. So, you also have a number of conventions on the prevention and combating corruption to the African Youth Charter, which elaborated actually this right very much. So let's look at the Gambia now. The 1970 Constitution gives a very weak recognition of freedom of information, when in its framing they say everyone has a right or freedom to some form of generous construction and the right to freedom of expression, and all of them, from Africa to Europe, to UN, to inter-American bodies. Okay, so we're in the current process now. For us at the level of the GPU, probably there were a lot of people who were talking about this before. We cannot